Hey everyone, welcome back to Edit Tech Club. Today we are starting a really fun project. We are building a modern weather app from scratch. In this first part, we'll create the layout and design using HTML and CSS, clean and perfect for showing weather data. Let's dive in and make our app look amazing. Okay, let's first create the files, index.html, then style.css, and finally our JavaScript file, script.js. Okay, I'll start with the HTML file. I'll create a skeleton using the Emmet abbreviation and then change the title to weather widget. Next, let's link this file to our CSS file and also our script at the end of the body, script.js. Okay, I'll save it and let's start with the weather card. I'll create a div. This is the main weather card, wraps everything inside our widget. I'll add the ID and also the class weather-card. Then an h1 tag for card's title. And next, the input. Here we have our input. Users can type in any city name to check the weather, type text, and also ID and class. City-input. We can also add a placeholder to show a default text like enter city name. Yeah, cool. I'll save that. Next, we need a button. So whenever the user clicks on this button, we will fetch the weather information and display it in the card. The ID is show weather button or btn and show weather as the text. I'll save the file so you see what we created so far. Yeah, looks good. Then we continue with another div. This section will display the actual weather information once the user searches for a city. So I'll name that weather info. We set the ID and class. And inside of that, we have several elements. First, an icon. I'll add another div. This is a weather emoji, for example, sunny, rainy, or snowy. I'll add the ID. And next, the temperature. ID equals temperature. This will show the current temperature, initially just dashes maybe, until we load real data. So for now, I'll keep it simple, yeah. And below that, we can also add a short description like clear sky or rain in the city. So I'll call it description. After that, we can also add the humidity and wind speed. So I'll create a div as details, which wraps those two parts, let's say. So the first one is humidity, class detail. Inside of that, we can add two span elements. So one for the label and the other one for the value, the percentage of humidity, for example, or the wind speed. ID, humidity. And next, the label, which shows the text. I'll add the class. Basically, we are going to use IDs for JavaScript access and classes for styling. I'll copy the detail div and paste it. Just change the span's ID to wind, as well as the text to wind speed. Now you can see the result on the right side. I'll save that. Then let's also add some defaults for temperature, 2 dashes, and then Celsius degree. You can press Alt together with 0176. To get the emojis, I'll navigate to emojipedia.org and then navigate to animals and nature. There we can have access to various weather-related emojis. I click on the sun and copy that. As you see here, it's part of Unicode standard emojis. And then I'll paste it here to display it as the default emoji. Also, we need another one for humidity. Let's see, I'll pick up this droplet, I'll copy that and paste it here. As you see, it's also part of Unicode. And finally, for wind speed, let me check. This fluttering glyph is a good one. I'll copy that and paste it here. Keep in mind that we should only use standard Unicode emojis to avoid copyright issues. Yeah, now looks good. Then we can start the CSS. First, let's reset some default browser styles to ensure consistency. I'll set margin and padding to 0, box sizing to border box, to include padding in the width, and font family to, maybe the first option suggested by the IDE. I'll save it. You see the changes. Then we style the body. It's set up to perfectly center our weather card, both vertically and horizontally. So I'll set display to flex, and then justify content and align items both to center. Mean height should be 100 VH to cover the entire height. And last but not least, we added a beautiful gradient background. I'll use my brand colors. We can use whatever color you prefer to bottom. And here are the color codes. Nice. I'll save that. I cannot see the color. Let me check. There's a comma missing here. I'll add that and then save it again. You see, it's working. Then, next step is the weather card. Dark background. So, background is dark blue. I'll also add padding and rounded corners by border radius. Then box shadow to make it look nicer. A simple black shadow around our card. Then we're going to center everything, so text align is center and width is 320 pixels. Finally, we add transition to have a little animation as well when we hover over that. So now you see that it's taking shape. When we hover over that, I would like to add a lift effect to make it feel interactive. Again, transform, then I'll use transfer across the y-axis and set it to -5 pixels. Now you see the change. Then the main title, bold and elegant. Again, I'll use the channel's gold color for that. I'll change the font size to 1.8 rem and margin bottom to 20 pixels. I'll save that, and then our input, the city input field with a gold border and soft rounded corners. We need a padding, 10 for top and bottom and 15 for left and right. Border radius 10 pixels. And let's also add a border, 2 pixels solid and gold. Font size maybe 1 rem. Width can be 90% maybe. We don't need outline. I'll set it to none. And finally, again, the transition to see an animation when the user focuses on our input for 0.2 seconds. And we apply that on border color for 0.2 seconds. It's not working yet because we haven't added the focus styles. When the user clicks inside, we slightly scale it up and change the border to our blue color. So we set the scale to 1.05. We see the changes, but there's no animation. I think there's something wrong here. Yes. In the city input, we need to add an S to the end. Now we see the animation. Looks good. Let's continue. It's our button's turn. The button sits just below the input field and uses our gold tone by default. We need margin to make some space between the input and the button, and the padding so the text doesn't stick to sides. There's a typo, I guess there. We haven't added even the class, so show weather button. Now you see the effect. We don't need border, but we can round the corners 10 pixels. I'll save it. Yeah, now you see that. And let's change the background and foreground colors. Here's the background, and then color should be set to the default blue. Font weight bold, and let's also change the cursor to pointer. When the user hovers over that, the pointer appears. And again, to smoothly change the background and foreground color, I'll add the transition property, 300 milliseconds for each. Nice. After that, we need hover. Again, we can use scale to increase the size a little for a satisfying click feel, and we change the background to a lighter blue. Yeah, now you see the effect. Next, the weather info. This section is where we'll display weather data with a nice gradient background that dynamically changes based on the weather. Margin top, and background is a linear gradient. You can also use degrees instead of 2 bottom or 2 right, or so on. And colors. Padding, 25 pixels for top and bottom, and 15 for left and right. Border radius should be 20 pixels, more than the other elements. And a box shadow is also good to have. And again, I prefer a dark shadow around that. I should fix the typo. Yeah, better dash info. For gradient update, we can also add a smooth transition. So the background will change. Yeah, now you see the new look, much better and eye-catching. Then the icon, so the weather emoji that we want to display. It should be quite large and also has a gentle floating animation for a playful vibe. So we'll add the font size and an animation. I'll name it float, and it should infinitely give us that floating animation. Yeah. Now we need to add the keyframes. Again, I forgot to add the class to this div, class icon, and then I'll save it. Now you see that it looks good. The animation is not there yet. We need to add the keyframes. And then the identifier, which is float. The name is of course up to you. It gives the emoji a nice gentle up and down motion. So we need to set translate Y for both 0 and 100, and also 15%. Minus 10 pixels might be enough. Yeah. Then I'll save it. Now you see how it floats. Good. Let's continue with the details section, or before that, the temperature. It's actually the most important info, therefore should be large and bold and easy to read. So font size 2.5 rem, margin only for top and bottom, and font weight should be bold. Finally, I'll add transition. Yeah. Next one is the description. It's slightly transparent for a softer look. Font size is 1.2 rem. Then I'll change the opacity to 0.9 maybe, and the transition like the previous one. 500 milliseconds, and this. Yeah. Cool. And the details. So the div which wraps both humidity and wind speed. We need display flex. Justify content, I'll set it to space around because we need some space around those elements as well. Margin top, so it doesn't get too close to the description. Yeah, looks good. And then each of them also should be displayed correctly. I'll use flexbox again, but this time I'll change the flex direction to column, so the text will be displayed below the value and the icon, so I mean the emoji. Again, it's not working, maybe a typo. Let's check the HTML file. Yeah, there's typo, and since I copied and pasted, we have that in both places. Yeah, detail. Now if I save it, cool. It looks awesome. Then the label, I'll change the font size as well as the opacity. Maybe also margin top is useful here, so you can clearly see the values. And again, we need to fix the typo. Now it looks good. Our final touch here is the media query for responsive design. For screens under 400 pixels wide, we can add different styles for the weather card and the input. So I'll change the widths of those elements. Weather card 90%, and the input, city input, I'll set the width to 100%. Not 100 pixels, of course, not 100%. And that's it for our CSS. And that's it for part 1. Our weather app is now fully designed, simple, responsive, and ready for action. In the next video, we'll bring it to life with JavaScript, fetching real weather data and updating it dynamically. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you won't miss the next part. Until then, keep coding, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.